Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this week's video blog. And I thought I would start off first of all by introducing you to the team who are here keeping the golf course in tip-top condition. So there they all are, handsome bunch behind me. We've got Mark over there, we then got Tony, Darren and Gary. So this is, of course, myself in the middle. So this is the team that's out here working very hard and carrying on and getting the golf course into tip-top condition. I also like to say at this time, it's not just the John Budd show and the greenkeepers. We have a board still working hard. We've got the captains are still working very hard. Plenty of meetings going on. Obviously the chairman, who really has got his work cut out, and of course there's Steve and Karen, who Karen's keeping me supplied with bits and pieces by signing off invoices and paying bills, and Steve is working very hard behind the scenes, obviously trying to get the whole place, keep it together and trying to get this place open as soon as possible. So there they are, that's the greenkeeping team, and we're going to move on this week and we're going to talk a little bit about the greens and how they're coming on and what you expect to see when you finally get back. So we'll be going on to the next video now. Cheerio. So as I just said in that last video, I take my hat off to everybody behind the scenes who I know working incredibly hard to get the business back on its feet, and I take my hat off to them. So let's talk about the greens here at Effingham Golf Club. As you can see, there's a black and white picture there. A very rare picture, probably taken, well, obviously taken before the golf course was built, mid-20s maybe, early 20s. That is the site of Effingham Golf Club as it stands today. I'll let you figure out where the golf course goes, but a very rare picture. I'm very privileged to be able to have something like that at Effingham Golf Club. So let's talk about the greens, push-up greens, built obviously mid-20s, late 20s. Push-up greens was the only method they had of building greens back then. Never had the machinery they have nowadays to push soil to all four corners of the golf course. So it is shovel pick and a cart horse and a trailer. Hence the greens called push-up. If you have a look around most of our greens, you can see they are pushed up into a level plateau which you putt on. If you have a look around, you'll see where they poured the soil from. Great good example is left hand side of the second greens you play the hole. You can see the cut in there and where the soil was pushed to the back of the green. They often incorporated a clay liner at the bottom of these greens to retain water in the winter. Winter golf wasn't a big thing, and that water would act as a capillary reaction, would give a form of irrigation in the summer months. The greens back then would have been seeded with fescue, and they would have stayed fescue. Fescue survives in a low pH of around 4. Very low inputs of fertiliser. The greens wouldn't have been cut anywhere near as short as we maintain them today. So they would have been a fescue dominated green. The only trouble we have with greens, these push-up greens, is drainage. As you well know, we've had problems like that here in the past. We've got lots of methods to get through it. We need to get through this clay bowl in some cases, but we use several methods. There's land drainage, there's pipe drainage, there's rope drainage now. We had a problem on the 4th, which we pretty well eradicated by using this 6-foot long drill bit, which worked very well. We got down through we had to go 6 foot to get through the clay bowl at the bottom into the chalk, backfilled with stone, and this has been a very effective method that's dried the 4th up fantastically. Other methods are the drill and fill, which we've used here several times. This puts a number of tines down in one hit, down to a depth of about 11 inches, almost an inch diameter, backfilled with kiln dried and zeolite materials, and that's a good way of firming up a green and creating drainage down to that depth. We also use the hollow coring method, which is not so much for drainage, it's more for building a very good root zone. It's all about the root zone. Now greenkeeping, it's a bit like fish keeping. You don't keep the fish, you keep the water. You're a water manager. You get the water right, the fish do exactly what they say on the tin. We get our root zones right, the grass will grow on it very healthy. So let's talk about our grasses. Have lost the dominated fescues. We probably lost those back in the 70s when the first irrigation came out. Irrigation water came out at 7. We started putting boreholes in. Boreholes in chalk were coming out near 8 on the pH scale. 8 is very detrimental to the green. So 7, once we got the pH up to 7, that saw off the fescues. They don't like that. As we talked about, they like a pH of around 4. So we started watering greens. We started over watering greens. The grasses that came in once we started losing the fescues was the Poa annua, which is what we have now. And there is different species of Poa annua. There's some fine species, there's broad species, there are perennials, there are annuals, they are biannuals. We have a little bit of everything, but they are known as a weed grass. In America, they call it bluegrass. You've probably heard of that term. And this is a grass that is very difficult to maintain. It's a grass that's managed to adapt to being cut very low. The demands from the golfer from the 80s, fast greens, all we kept hearing, and greenkeepers were pushing these greens down lower and lower. This grass has learnt to flower at a very low height, 3 mil, which is not desirable, and that happens exactly this time every year. Usually the last week in April, first week in May, we will see this species flower. This will cause us very uneven, bumpy greens due to differential growth. We do have a little bit of bent in our greens, about 20% on average, which also grows at a different rate whatsoever. So this is where we get this mottled, bumpy look at the beginning of the year. There's nothing we can do about it. We can sand all we like, but we won't get that grass to grow. It will only start to grow once it started flowering. We try to de-stress the grass as much as we can, keep the heights of cut up a little bit, but yet again the demands for speed over the years has caused an awful lot of problems to these old push-up greens. It's been very difficult to maintain. Over watering, over fertilisation. These greens will demand up to 250 kilos a year. We like to put around 100 kilos on. We keep these greens very stressed in a way, but just on the good side of healthy. We've now learnt about speed. Speed isn't about lowering the cut. Lowering the cut does not help with speed. It's about friction on the ball. As you can see from the pictures, it's a very dense grass. It's very difficult to thin out when you get to your fine fescue grasses and even your bent grasses. Sorry, they're not so dense. So there's a lot more air between each blade. So the ball is only touching certain amount of bladed grass per inch. Problem with these Poa greens, they are so dense the ball very rarely is not on a piece of grass. So that's where the friction is what causes the ball to slow up. So we need to try and thin out this species, and we do that through verticutting, which you saw in a previous video, and that's just trying to remove a percentage of the blade so we can speed the ball up. So it's a job we do throughout the summer. Usually before big competitions we do it just to try and get that little bit more speed onto it. But this also propagates the grass, and it causes it to then flower again if we're not careful. It's a survivor grass. It's a very demanding grass, I said. It loves its water, it loves fertilizer. We keep both of those very strict control. Moisture, we monitor that every week. We have a moisture meter goes out, we test the greens front, middle and back, and then we put them into a spreadsheet that has been developed here at Effingham Golf Club. And so we keep track. In the summer, when we're in control of the water, we try to keep the greens between 20 and 25% moisture. This is ideal for firm and faster greens without letting the Poa start to absorb too much moisture, become fatty and slow again, slows the ball up. So water management is very important, nutritional management is very important. As I said, we're now in the flowering stage for the next couple of weeks. Once this is over, and then all the species we have in there all start growing at the same time, which gives us a much more even green, and as a green we can then start thinking a little bit more about getting the speed up. That is with lots of small top dressers, little and often, we've talked about that before, and rolling. The roller now plays a very important part. The roller does not actually compact the greens very much because of the speed and the way we do it. It does create a little bit more speed. It's a very useful tool before competitions, yet again exactly what it's designed for. But the Poa being the Poa, it's an annual, biannual and preannual, as I said, very prone to disease. Mainly hit through the winter with a disease called Fusarium. That's how you would know it. It's a fungal disease. This is a picture you've seen many times before on our greens. Very difficult to deal with now. We've lost near enough all our chemicals. We've got a couple left on the market to deal with, so we've got nothing to deal with this now in the winter. Our contact versions of this chemical have now gone. We only got a systemic, which is only any good when the plant is growing. It's dormant most of winter. It's very prone to this fungal attack. It can't defend itself, so the fungus gets a free run on it. There's ways of bringing the grass up, try and get the heights up a little bit more in the winter. Very difficult because it's going dormant. It actually sits tight, so it doesn't matter if we do try and raise the mowers, it won't ever come up to that height. It's trodden on all year round now. The demand in golf all year round for competitions, it puts a lot of pressure on these older greens. So we need to adapt. We need to be overseeding with bent to try and get the bent to establish. Very difficult in greens this dense for the bent to establish. It only really gets a grip in the winter, but then come the springtime, come the beginning of summer as we are now, it cannot compete with the power and it shrivels back. So the greens here, as I've said, predominantly power. Most of the greens you'll ever play on predominantly power, and they're all doing the same thing at every golf course around the world near enough at this moment in time, except obviously for Australia, they use a different type of grass. But if you go to America at this moment in time, they'll be doing the same things we are anywhere in Europe. So hope that gives you a little idea of the greens, and look forward to getting you back, and the greens should be in good shape. Take care.